Joining us on the line is Mufti Yusuf Moosagie. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Right, this week, Mufti, we speak about the book Surrounded by Fools. What is this book, Surrounded by Idiots, all about?
Yeah, the book has quite a catchy title. And I think there's many who may feel the way that the book suggests that you are surrounded by idiots. You may feel that in your work environment or, wherever you are, that many of those around you, you may think of them as idiots. And there may be some reasons for that. Now, there are situations where you're working with someone, you're sitting with someone, you're doing something as a collective task. And when the person says something or does something and you think to yourself, what an idiot. And you may think, that this person, because they haven't met your expectation or haven't done things in your particular way, that person is an idiot. But the reality is that you're not alone in this. When we do not understand the behavior of others, we're quick to criticize that. So at the core of it is, why are some people so quiet while others talk nonstop? Why are some people always late while others are punctual? Why is it that when you meet someone, you click naturally with them and others just irritate you? So this is because of our behavioral differences, and it comes from a variety of factors: our personality traits, our character, our temperament, and external factors like our environment and situation. So in the book that has been written by the author, Thomas Erickson, he explains how to recognize and to communicate with people who have different personality traits. So that is at the core of our discussion for today.
It's also good to know, Mufti, that this book caught your attention after you left Radio Islam, not while you were sitting there next to me. So, Mufti, how does communication happen on the listener's terms?
So when we speak, we feel that we've given a message and our message is clear. And, there's nothing ambiguous. They ought to grasp it as we've given it. But the reality is that a message is not received as you conceived it, the one uttering it. In fact, the person who receives that message, they adapt that message. There's certain biases. There's certain things that influence how the message is picked up. So the only time when the message that you've given will be completely received as you've given it is when you're alone in the room, or when all the other people in the room are exactly like you. That is it. That is when your message will be conceived and picked up exactly as you've given it off. But if that is not the case, then your message will be picked up in a different way. There's certain types of filters that each person has. There's certain biases. There's certain influences of the environment, of the background. So when we look at a person, then a person, in terms of your makeup and your character, it's almost like an onion, where at the core of it, you have your core values. Now, what are your core values? Your deeply embedded beliefs, for which it is almost impossible to change, often embedded by the parents. Then the layer above that is your attitudes and your approaches. Things we formed opinions on based on our experience. Then the next layer is your core behavior. Core behavior and attitudes form our core behavior, and which is how we act when there's no external influence. And then you have your moderated behavior. People around us tend to see our moderated behavior, whereby we adapt to the situation. And then finally, you have your environment. And these adjustments are all influenced by the outer layers of the environment. So what we understand is that, when we communicate, a person, considering the makeup of that person, their core values, their attitudes, all of that, that all has an impact in how they perceive the message that we're giving to them. So behavior patterns are like a toolbox. All types are needed depending on the occasion, and a tool can sometimes be right and sometimes wrong. So, people pick up the messages according to their own factors and their own, biases that they have.
And this book, Mufti, it looks at different behavior types, or different, and in the book they've put them into different colors. Explain the 4 behavior types.
Yes, so basically it is called the DISA model, where some people have dominance, some people have inducement, others have submission, and others are analytical. So those are the 4 traits. But now to make it easier, what they've given each one a color. So the dominance is red, and then the inducement is yellow, submission is green, and analytical is blue. So these are the 4 behavioral types that have been outlined. And the Thomas Erickson's 4 colors are put in this category to help us understand why we behave in a particular manner. And, they not to narrowly compartmentalize people, but it's just to give you a glance at what people, every color has its desirable and non-desirable traits. A quality like ambition can be a strength in some situations, and in other situations, it can be a liability. The man is overambitious. He wants to take over the position of his authorities, So at some stage, he wants to move forward, which is ambitious, is good. In other situation, overambition may be a liability. So different situations also call for different behaviors. So, the thing is that to treat the behavior patterns as tools as you can use. And, as we were speaking about earlier, that when you know and you understand people, then you can respond in a particular manner. Take, for instance, when you give the example of a toolbox, you have a 10-kilo sledgehammer, which is great for tearing down walls, but it's not what you need to hang a frame in the foyer of your home or in the entrance hall of your home. So having the right tools is important to be able to achieve what you set out to achieve.
Now, how should one adapt and give feedback to reds?
Okay, so for each person, they have their core traits and then how they perceived and what sort of body language they give off. So in terms of the red, what are the core traits of a red person, a dominant person? Reds are highly ambitious. They are driven. They are competitive. And they are comfortable taking the lead. They speak their minds and they prioritize speed and efficiency. And they have a strong conviction in their version of reality. So that is, the core traits of a red person, very strong personality. How are they perceived? So for those who are looking on at a red person, they see them as dictatorial. They see them as controlling, even tyrannical. They might not seem interested in trivial conversations and tend to be focused on the point, on the matter, get to the point, cut the chase. And some people may look at them and say, this is a very blunt person, very straightforward, almost aggressive. So that is how they're perceived. And when you see a red person, what sort of a body language they give off? A red exhibit, clear, distinct body language. They keep their distance from others. They have a powerful handshake. They often lean forward aggressively, make direct eye contact and controlling gestures, and speak quickly with a strong voice. So that is, the core traits, how they are perceived, and the body language of a red.
And what about yellows? How should one adapt and give feedback to yellows?
So firstly, when we look at the yellows, then you'll see in terms of the yellows, the core traits, yellows are relentlessly optimistic and often the most popular of the behavior types. Their focus is on developing relationships and they are highly persuasive. Yellows generally exhibit a high level of energy and curiosity. How are they perceived? They are perceived, they are looked as, they obviously speak much more than others. They typically turn conversations to themselves and are very poor listeners. And they often seem as careless with projects that require long spells of concentration and significant follow-up. And when you see a yellow person, their language, the body language is very relaxed. Eye contact is friendly. Gestures are expressive. Yellows often come close, smile a lot, and talk quickly and empathetically. So that is in terms of the yellows and how they are viewed.
And then moving on to the greens, Mufti Sahib.
So the green, in terms of the core traits of the green, greens don't stick out like others. They sort of blend in, they almost like unnoticed. They're calm and tolerant to singular behavior, friendly, considered strong team players. They often struggle to say no and are less direct and upfront. And how are they perceived? Some people will perceive greens as being obstinate, or once a decision has been taken, they can always be considered as enthusiasm killers because of their indifference, and their behavior can appear passive and disinterest. And greens may also be less precise, more non-committal with words in order to preserve relationships. So they just want to go with the flow, keep things as it is. They don't want to upset the apple cart. And when you look at a green person, greens' body language is relaxed and closed. They often tend to lean backwards. They will make very friendly eye contact at time, but their gestures will be small. It will be less flamboyant. The movement is less. And greens' voices don't tend to be strong, but instead soft and slower talking.
And finally, the blues, Mufti Sahib.
Yes, now the blues, when you look at the blues, their core trait is logical. They cool-headed, risk-averse, and detail-orientated. They are more willing to work on predictable tasks and are usually introverted. And when you look at a blue person, they are the ultimate perfectionists. Blues are not keen on small talk and can appear cold and dismissive. Now, once we understand these different types of personalities, then the important thing is to see how we would adapt to each one. So if you're speaking to a red, then you need to be quick and brief, cut the small talk, focus on the essentials, don't sit on the fence, have a clear opinion, demonstrate hard work, and if you have to give feedback to a red person, then giving feedback to red is to be upfront and honest. Don't give concrete examples. Stick to the facts over feelings. Be prepared to calmly handle conflict and repeat what you've agreed upon. So that is when you're speaking to a red person. If you are speaking to a yellow person, then what you need to do is create a warm and friendly atmosphere around them. Strip away unnecessary detail and focus on the big issues. Empathize with gut-based decisions. Give them space to work on a new project. And if you have to give them feedback, then prepare a feedback agenda and stick to it. Don't let them eat up all the time. Be aware that they may not be fully listening. Ensure that they don't take it personal. So that is for the yellows. In terms of the green, if you need to speak to a green, then how do you adapt to the person? Be prepared to listen to what they're anxious about. Allow them periods of peace and quiet to recharge. Clearly explain the steps of a plan. If you need to criticize a green person, then deliver the criticism in private. Take command to get things done where needed. And in terms of the blue person, if you need to interact with a blue person, do your homework, stick to the task, and stick to the facts. Avoid daydreaming. Provide necessary detail. Avoid getting stuck, getting too personal. So be prepared for counter questions when you're dealing with a blue person, and get them to repeat what you said and follow up. So this is the important part of it, and this is the essence of our discussion, is to identify the people around you. Firstly, to identify what category you are in, and then to identify those around you and to put them in a category. And Mulana, before the program, I was sitting and thinking to myself that after reading this book and after reflecting on it, I was wondering in which category do I fall. So, Mulana, what category do you fall into?
I don't even know.
I think you're going to reflect on it, but perhaps the green that,
I read in the book that there's some people that have like a difference of all four. The one would be more prominent, but they could have the qualities of the other four. And when I was going through it, that I would like to think it's probably green, but what a mixture of the others as well.
Yes, certainly. We all, and as they say that only 5% have one dominant color. The majority have one dominant and, other colors. 80% have two dominant colors and 15% have three dominant colors. So, yes, we are all a combination of the different colors.
Which colors and personality types complement each other, Mufti Saab?
So when you have a team, then you need to have a variety of colors. If you have four people who are all reds, dominant, strong, to the point, that then what happens is they all may communicate very well, but then what happens is that you need some people, you're going to have a clash in terms of authority, in terms of who's calling the shots. Too many chiefs and Indians. So the natural combinations is blues and greens have some natural synergy. Both are introverted and so feel secure with one another. Reds and yellows have natural synergy for opposite reasons. Both have the same type of energy and enthusiasm for working quickly. So, complementary combinations, the reds and blues are both task-orientated, with one results focusing on or detail-orientated. And then, yellows and greens are more relationship-orientated, with yellows being great talkers and greens being great listeners. So opposite colors tend to be more challenging. Reds and greens can be a difficult combination. The directness of reds may frustrate the greens, while the passivity and the slowness of the greens may frustrate the reds. And the most challenging combination, however, is the blue and the yellow. They are, typical friction from the outset, with one focus quietly on detail and the other talkative and shooting from the hip. So when it comes to the optimal combinations, Erickson in the book has some simple advice. He says if it's not clear what behavior type you are working with, sometimes it's best to listen for a while. Often acting green is the best default strategy for if you're unsure. Yeah, it's impossible to account for all human differences. There will be exceptions. Moreover, we are capable, we need to be able to adapt our behavior instead of rigidly sticking to one set of behavior.
And Mufti Saab, how do the different colors, how do they respond to stress?
And I think this is an important part of it because, in the work environment, in the home environment, in all different environments, you see two sides to a person. You see a person in their good, in their natural, when they're relaxed. And that is one particular set of behaviors. And then when a person is stressed, when a person is feeling fatigue, then you see another set of behavior. So it's important to be able to understand how different people will respond. So in terms of the red, when there's stress factors, what happens to a red? They start taking authority away. Wasting, look at where the time wasting in resources, mundane. And the red's response is work even harder, hide themselves, identify scapegoats. That's what a red person will do. For a yellow person, they would then isolate from the group perhaps and seek, optimism with new ideas. The green person becomes cold, close body, uncertain and insecure, and tends to internalize blame for mistakes. And the blue person, they become lethargic, slow down to avoid mistakes, excessive pessimism. So each one has their own way of how they communicate, how they deal with stress, and how they deal with difficult situations.
Mufti, can you share with us some of the quotes from the book, and also who do you think should read this book?
So in terms of some of the quotes from the book, so one of the quotes that stood out for me is where Erickson says, "The idiots who surround you are not idiots at all. Instead, they are individuals worthy of respect, understanding, and being valued." So I know, at the outset we said that the book says surrounded by idiots, but here he explains that they're not idiots. They are individuals worthy of respect, understanding, and being valued. Another quote that stood out for me, which Erickson says that communication happens on the listener's terms. Everything you say to a person is filtered through his frames of reference, his bias, and conceived ideas. Then another one he says in the book is, behavior patterns are like a toolbox. All types are needed. And we spoke about that. You need to have the right tools for the right person. Another one of his quotes, no group should be composed solely of individuals of the same type. Diversity is the only possible route. The best way to put a group of people together is by mixing the different types of people. So every group, in your own circle, in the office environment, you need to identify who the different people are and try to create teams with diverse colors. He says in one of his quotes, some people become angry because of stress, others become stressed because of anger. So that is a very thought-provoking one, that some people become angry because of stress and others become stressed because of anger. And another one, communication is often a matter of adapting to others. So when you're speaking, it's not how you would like to perceive it, but how it would be most conducive for the other person, and speaking in a way that would be, best received by the other person that you're speaking to.
Jazakumullah khairan for all of that there, Mufti Saab. There's quite a few messages that have come through as well. Just on this topic, it says, Alhamdulillah, I've read this book. It's amazing how I color code people, understand them so much better, as well as how different people gel with each other by having different qualities.
So just to conclude our discussion in terms of, who is this book for? Who should be reading this book? So in terms of our discussion skills for the success, anyone, business leaders, managers, coach, trainers, all those in people development, they should be reading it. And anyone who wishes to improve their relationship, communication and people skills, I would say that, every husband and wife should read the book and, understand your partner better, to be able to understand what category, what is their color. So, ulama should read it. Anyone in a leadership position, and just to be able to understand those in your work environment, each one, and to be able to adapt. So it's for everyone. The book will really help you if you have an interest in developing your relationships and being able to communicate and to be able to connect with people.
Certainly, a book that we should all try to read. It's available at many of the leading bookstores here in South Africa as well. 25 minutes to 10. This is the Skills for Success program. We're going to go for an ad break. When we come back, we continue with the program. The second part, the second segment of this program focuses on Q&A. So any questions that you have, you can drop us a message on our